Welcome to the Disruptors Network podcast.
Welcome back to the Disruptors Network podcast. We have a great high energy guest today with Craig Siegel. He is the host of the breakthrough podcast, the CLS Experience, which stands for Cultivating Lasting Sympathy. And that's the name of his company too, as well as his mental programming that we're going to go over. Craig has been a keynote speaker, a host of his podcast, a breakthrough entrepreneur. During the pandemic, he decided to leave his lucrative, stable Wall Street job and start this course, start this program to help people access the inner power they have. And he really truly believes that mentally, we're the only things that are holding ourselves back. And by just changing our own mental programming, we can achieve amazing things. And he has some really great tips around that. And he's done it himself. He's kind of the guinea pig for it. So without further ado, here we are, Craig Siegel.
Ignition. Liftoff.
We are back with the Disruptors Network podcast, and we have an amazing, high-energy, awesome guest today, and Craig Siegel. And Craig, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ralph. I'm super excited. I love the accent. It's refreshing to hear someone else with that New York just vibe and energy. So we're gonna have a ton of fun today. Audience, buckle up.
Craig, it's funny. I was talking to somebody this week, and I was like, I don't get to talk to a lot of people from New York anymore that actually have a New York accent anymore. So I feel like mine's kind of fading, or it's kind of morphing into something else. Maybe I'm not really sure, but
Sounds great, buddy.
It changes. But so Craig, where are you originally from? You're always from New York, obviously. With your accent, you have to be from New York originally.
Yeah. So I grew up in Long Island, and then after college, I started my career on Wall Street, and I lived here ever since.
So I went through a bunch of your stuff last night, and what I really wanted you to explain to the audience to start, because I have a bunch of questions based around it, is what is neuro-linguistic programming for people who don't know? And I went and studied it a little bit, but like, what is neuro-linguistic programming? Because I know it's a lot of what CLS is about and what you're about, and a lot of what you're doing. Can you just give the audience a little background on what that is?
Sure, it's a great question. So for the audience listening, it's usually called NLP. That's what most people heard of. It's funny. You could ask 100 different people what NLP means to them, and chances are you get 100 different answers. I can tell you what it means to me. Studying NLP has helped me reprogram my brain, so to speak. So in essence, people don't look at the world as the world. They have their own map of the world, their perception of what they see possible for themselves or for the world, just like the movie The Matrix. And so by studying NLP, I learned quite a few things. Number one, our thoughts are completely random, but thinking is not. So just as we have thoughts that can neg us out or put us in a lowered state, with NLP, it introduces us a technology, the ability to remove those disempowering thoughts and implement in its place more empowering ones, more productive ones, because those thoughts then create our beliefs or our emotions. And obviously that creates habits and results and so forth. So in a nutshell, NLP, what it means to me is the ability to tap into our magic by reprogramming our mindset and brain to make it work for us, not against us.
Do you feel like that's something that you may have been doing subconsciously over the years before you actually knew what it was, and then started doing it purposely? Or was it something that always you felt that you were working towards, and then you kind of figured out exactly what it was and you started like reprogramming a little bit more?
I was doing some of this as I went through, as I grew up and so forth. There'd be pieces and so forth that I had the ability to elevate my state on command.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is I didn't know how to organize it, so to speak, right? Like you can watch a Rocky movie and get super excited and then go crush a workout. But with NLP, I was able to deliberately elevate my state on command whenever I see fit. And so once I understood that this whole thing is a technology in itself and you could tap into it on command whenever you want, it opened everything up to me in the world.
Yeah, so I see you doing things that I know you have to, that are very mental, and marathon running is one of those things, right? I'm a runner, but
are you?
Yeah. So I'm a runner,
Great.
but I'm not running. I've run a marathon before, but not recently. But I'm a runner. Like I run between 100 and 125 miles a month. So I'm consistent. But marathon running in general, like I tell people all the time, like once you break through that once, it's kind of a different place. But you're doing it. I know you're doing it again in a couple of weeks, right?
New York City, I'm running in less than 2 weeks.
So did you have to almost reprogram yourself when you started doing that to kind of because you're fit, right? But that mental state you have to go through to kind of break through is a little bit different. So how do you do it to make yourself physically almost get to a different place?
Now you're getting me jazzed up, Ralph. It's a great question, buddy. And it's accurate. I had lifted weights for, I would say, about 15 years. That's how I worked out. Not like a professional bodybuilder or anything like that. That was just my escape, so to speak, to work out and feel good and look good. I have a very addictive personality. A couple years back, I challenged myself and I got into running, and I was humbled by the first run or two that I found it challenging when I consider myself to be, and I quote, in shape. Yeah. But then as things started to get interesting, I was like, was I really tired from running a mile or two? Or was it my perception of what I think effort is, since I never really ran before? And then literally just like that, by changing my perception of what I was doing, I was able to run further, which led to signing up to New York City Marathon. And then I ended up running 4 marathons in 1 year, 2 years ago. Because I'm a little bit of a cycle like that. Like I have a feeling you are too.
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
But to answer your question, yes, buddy. Like running is a skill set that can be, as long as everyone listening to this podcast right now, and I imagine at some point it'll be millions, as long as everyone is able to put one foot in front of the other, then they should be able to run, right? Or improve at it. And so once you realize that, like, there's a voice in our head that's called the opponent, I like to call them, and they're there to throw us off, right? Once we have a system in place where we can combat that voice and keep our center, so to speak, and elevate our mindset, then we're capable of really doing extraordinary things, such as running marathons and so forth. So to answer your question, specifically with the marathon in the later miles, I believe it's all mindset.
Yeah, for me, and I like everything you said, because I've always exercised, right? But when I got into running, usually when you get fit, you can do things consistently, right? I can go to the gym, I can lift a certain amount of it consistently, but running for me has always been, one day it's good, one day it may not be good. And I know it's mental most of the time, but it's almost hard to reprogram yourself, like you're saying, to be like, hey, you've done this before, you can push through it, which is why I like marathons in general, because I feel like when I'm struggling with the 3-mile run or a 4-mile run or whatever it is, I can be like, well, I ran a marathon already, I should be able to do this. And I kind of go back to that in my head, but it's very, very mental, which is why that, for me, that was a personal question almost, like how are you using it to change your mind, And
just to touch upon what you just said, when you're running a 3 or 4 mile run and you find it challenging, and then you go back to that point of reference, wait a minute, I ran a marathon. You can also use that same metaphor for other things in life, like business or relationships or anything that's challenging, because to be honest with you, buddy, running a marathon is pretty badass. I think less of 1% of the world's population has even attempted one. So the fact that you conquer one, you can use that as a point of reference for any obstacles in life. So kudos to you.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Do you feel like you're constantly pushing your own limits to kind of prove your programming, right? Like you're the guinea pig. Like I think of Tom Brady in a lot of ways. Like I feel like Tom Brady's just on a mission at this point now to prove that his system of mental and physical and how he eats is going to work, and he's going to play for as long as he can to kind of. Do you feel like you have to do that to almost show people, like, look, I'm going to push myself every single day. I can keep breaking through barriers to show you that what I'm trying to preach to you really works?
Yes and no, and it's a thought-provoking question. I appreciate it. Yes, I want to practice what I preach. I want to lead by example. I want everyone to say he's doing it. So if he's telling me to do it, I really have no excuses. But the truth of the matter is one of my best friends. He always says to me, you should take more content and footage when the camera is not on, because nobody in the world that I've ever seen, and this is him speaking, embodies like your spirit and what you preach than you. Even when nobody's watching, you should actually show more of that. So I am learning to do more content and show a little bit more behind the scenes, because the truth of the matter is this isn't like, this isn't a character I'm portraying. This really is me with everything that I do. I only know 2 gears. It's 100 miles an hour or it's nothing. I don't know any in between. I don't believe in moderation, not making any suggestions or telling anyone what to do. It's just for me personally, it's 100 miles an hour.
And I like that you said that, because you're right. It's not a quick fix, right? You live the life. Like you're always living the life, whether people are looking or they're not looking, you're always living that life.
I am. Yeah, I really am.
Something else that I know that is a part of your story and resonated with me being from New York and everything else is, you had a pretty secure job on Wall Street, right? You had what you thought you should be doing, and you decided at some point, like, this isn't for me anymore, and I'm going to go do what my true calling is. I always tell people is that there is no such thing as transitioning. You really have to put your back against the wall and do something and force yourself to do something. Like, you can't transition, and you really did that. But was that a scary moment? Was that just a feeling you had to do it? Like, what was that like, that transition from not corporate but Wall Street, which is some people's dream, to kind of what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I was on Wall Street for a while. I was in finance, and then I pivoted and started my own business. And I say this very humbly, it was very successful. And the truth of the matter is I never really gave myself an opportunity to ask myself if I was happy or whatever the case may be. As you know, in Manhattan, it's go, go, go. So when I shut down my office last March for what I thought was going to be 2 weeks, it occurred to me, I had a major breakthrough. I realized I was miserable doing what I was doing, even though I was making money and I had my own business, which I'm obviously grateful for. But I felt like I was waking up every day and going to a job, Ralph. Like, that's what it felt like to me. And I hope that nobody goes through that, because everybody does have a choice. And it started to become just not fun, for lack of better words. And so when the pandemic happened, I put myself in that frequency and I said, what are my gifts? And I think my gift is I've always been able to inspire people and to motivate them. People would always come to me as a communicator to kind of elevate their spirits. Now, I took that gift and the fact that I've been obsessed with personal development, NLP, and all that stuff, and I married them. And I said, wait a minute, what if we combine my ability to communicate with my obsession of personal development? I did start all these businesses, run these marathons. I know how the mind works and so forth. And so I looked at what people were doing online. I got some ideas and I put together a strategy. And I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but you have to pick a target, right? If you're going to think, you might as well think big. I said I was going to do this even bigger than Tony Robbins, selling out stadiums, the biggest podcast on the planet. Number one, basically the face of personal development, not for a personal accomplishment, but just to be able to give back and to help as many people as I could. And so fast forward a year, we have one of the top podcasts on the planet, the world's biggest celebrities that don't typically do interviews, chopping it up, talking mindset and adversity. One of the most sought after keynote speakers now, just did a keynote at St. John's University and all these private businesses and so forth. And obviously the coaching, which has just gone up like this for the audience. They can't see up in a straight line. So yeah, it was, to be honest with you, to come full circle with your question, I was more scared now that I had awareness and I was miserable at my old job, even though it was my business. I was more terrified to go back and keep doing what I was doing and wake up another 3 to 5 years miserable. Yeah. So taking the shot at CLS, that was actually refreshing, because I never failed at anything in my life that I had a strategy for and I matched with work ethic. So I put together a strategy, I put the effort in, the rest is history.
You know, I love that you said that, because once you woke up, right, to what that you weren't happy, you couldn't go back to it. I think that's the problem with a lot of people. They realize they're not happy and they keep going back to it over and over again, expecting it to change.
That's the problem, brother. Or even people don't expect it to change. They just get so stuck. Like, look, everyone's been in that relationship, right? Where, like, you know, it's not right, it should end, but maybe you're a little comfortable, whatever the case may be. Business, work, life, like, it happens all the time. But what I want everybody to know and take away from this episode is there's always a choice, right? Like in the pandemic, in the beginning, a lot of people were being very unproductive, a lot of Netflix, a lot of day drinking. I saw that. I was like, I need to get to work. I need to cultivate an edge. And that's when I started CLS. And I imagine you did something similar. So there's always a choice. There's always a move to be made. And I'm guilty of doing something that didn't set my soul on fire for too long. And when I finally became aware of that, I made a promise to myself I was going to find what my purpose was and passion and make it work.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, it's awesome. And you're right. Like, I went through something similar when the pandemic happened, where I was like, I just don't want to freeze, right? Like, I just don't want to stand still, because a lot of people would do what you were saying. They were standing still. And a lot of people, like, on the podcast, they were like, you know, for the first couple of months, I gave myself a break and I just didn't do anything. And I was still coming to the office every single day because I was so afraid to lose momentum. And, you know, that's a question I have for you too. Are you, do you try to keep yourself around a stable atmosphere so you don't lose, you know, that momentum that you have going, that's forward, that's positive? Like, do you try to keep yourself in a consistent environment at this point now, more than you did even before, when you were really more in a business that could have been a little bit volatile?
So ironically enough, now I'm making more of an effort to put myself in those types of rooms with other big high achievers and so on. Because when I was building CLS for the last year, I was just like this, tunnel vision, 100 miles an hour with my team, my assistant who you met before we went on air, my PR girl, and my team members. literally just tunnel vision, going nuts, collaborating, working, coaching, speaking, content, podcasts, all the things. But now I'm deliberately delegating time to be in masterminds, right? To be in groups, to be around people that are crushing it and doing the thing, because not only is it contagious, but it's a great networking opportunity. But I'm not ever worried about losing momentum, because I'm really self-driven and I'm really excited about what I'm doing. In case you couldn't tell, I'll be doing this for the rest of my life in some capacity. So I'm very self-motivated, but it can't hurt to be around other people that are doing big things.
And then where do you, like, what's your vision for CLS at this point? Like, where do you see it going? What do you want it to be? Like in 3 years from now, like, where would you want CLS to be?
I want to have the #1 most downloaded podcast on the planet, just talking about mindset, adversity, breaking it down so everyone could see some of these big stars, like the people you mentioned earlier, Tom Brady and so forth. What was their mindset like when they were facing adversity and obstacles? What did they do to kind of break out and achieve the success? I want to be the most sought after keynote speaker, speaking in front of Wembley Stadium, hundreds of thousands, talking about removing disempowering thoughts and implementing productive thoughts and so forth. And then obviously the top coach in the entire space, the Apple of personal development and so forth. We also have a weekly show that we do every Saturday, David Meltzer and myself on Instagram, which just got greenlit for a nationwide television show, which is super cool. We're going to be on another show, Office Hours, on Bloomberg on TV in December. So the possibilities are endless. And to be straight up with you, to be vulnerable, I'm still figuring some of this stuff out, because a lot of stuff on my vision board and my list of intention has already transpired. And I say that very humbly. So it's time to start thinking, what's the next moves and so forth. But I'm still figuring some stuff out.
Listen, I like that though, because you're right. It's an ever evolving business. And I'm sure every single time you go speak in front of people now, or sometimes when you have these high powered guests on, that you get more thoughts on how you can expand your business and how you could do more. And I think the most important thing I get from you and all the videos I've watched about you and listened to is, you don't feel out of place in any of these rooms, right? Like you feel like when you get there, like you like, this is where I'm supposed to be here. And I don't think it's in a cocky way at all. Like you're very comfortable in your own skin, which is what I like about how you speak. I just feel like you're very, very comfortable in what you're telling people at this point.
You know what it is? You're right. And in the beginning, I made an effort, like when I would be around these big juggernauts, I like to call them, to look at them equally, right? Respect them, of course, but also like I deserve to be here in this room. And the truth of the matter is over the last year, I've done a lot. I've coached now some of those celebrities. I've done incredible things in regards to helping people, which is most important, revamp their mindset, change their life, open themselves up for a relationship, start businesses, make a ton of money and so forth. So I do have the testimonials. So that gives me a lot of confidence. But yeah, to circle back, I think it's important that everybody holds their ground and stands firm, even when you're around greatness, so to speak. That doesn't mean don't show respect, of course, but just believe. Self-belief is everything. You deserve to be in this room right now.
How do you start to change somebody that comes to you, right? That maybe they come to you defeated, or they're just putting the wrong things in their brain. How do you start to change someone's mindset to get them that positive momentum in life, right? To kind of move them towards giving themselves more access to the positive things that are in their brain.
So the first thing is awareness and mindfulness. Help them see that the way they're thinking right now is a disservice to them, because they have these limiting beliefs. They tell themselves these stories as to why they can't do stuff, right? Or as to why you won't be the top real estate mogul on the planet in the next 2 years, whatever the case may be. Once we can acknowledge that, then we start utilizing the tools, right? And the toolbox and the kit, and we start removing those stories. None of us were born with these beliefs. We cultivated them over time through our environment, our families, social media, society. And just as easy as we adapted most of these negative limiting beliefs, we can remove them and we can replace them with empowering ones. So then we start to do that. And then in regards to like building big businesses or whatever the case may be, obviously there's very strategic, organized plans of action to take to help you get there. But at the end of the day, no matter what business you're in, it's always going to come back to this: what you believe to be possible for yourself. Nobody can outperform their own self-image.
Yeah, that's awesome. And something I heard you say a few times, and you said it today in a different way, but I've heard you say it in other ways, where you had the passion and the drive, but you weren't pointing in the right direction, right? Like, so right. How do you know that? how do you know that? And I know you told us how you know that, but how do you help somebody else recognize it? Like, hey, you have passion and you're great at this, but it just pointed in the wrong place.
Right. So a lot of people will come and ask me if I can work with them that have clarity, but they want to scale or they want to improve their mindset. Some people, just like you just mentioned, will come without clarity and they want to know where they should channel their fire to, right? Or their passion and so forth. So got to break it down. Like, what do you love? And if you're really having trouble, because I've had clients that literally don't know what they're passionate about, there's different things that we could do. I would suggest texting, calling, or emailing 10 of the closest people in your life. Have them all respond to what they think you're best at or what they think you love most. And then collect the data. It really is that simple. It's not easy, but it's simple and so forth. So there's always ways to kind of find what we love.
Yeah. I mean, and when people get into your program, what does a program with you look like? What does the mentoring and the mental coaching look like in a program with CLS?
So it depends, right? We have the one-on-one, which is a little bit more intimate and full accountability and so forth. We have our masterminds, which is also intimate, but it's a group container. Okay. A little bit of like higher achievers and so forth. And then what I'm most excited about right now is we recently launched the CLS membership 3 months ago, which is very inexpensive, but we have weekly Zoom calls where it's all stuff like we're talking about right now, but teaching, coaching, how to remove the limiting beliefs, how to inject empowering ones, law of attraction, putting yourself in these frequencies, how to scale a business. And then I bring on, because I'm so passionate about the membership, some of the big guests that I collect with. Now I'm wired. I had this whole network of people that have been on the podcast and so on. I bring them in so the audience can tap into them, get access to them. But the coolest part about the membership is we have a private group where the replays live, but everybody networks. Like you said earlier in the conversation, it's not a community, it's a family. Everybody supports each other. So I'm really excited about the CLS membership right now, but there's many different ways to work with me.
That's awesome, dude. And how does somebody access that? Like, where would somebody go to access that group? Just even the Zoom calls?
Yeah. So my website is cultivatelastingsymphony.com. Or if you follow me on Instagram at Craig Siegel _CLS, in the bio, there's a link to all the stuff that we do.
Craig, now that you said that too, I have a question because I feel like, and I'm recently becoming aware of you, right? But you've built a lot in the last 2 years. Like, what does that look like? Is that you just going 100 miles an hour? Like, look, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be this person to get my message out. Like, because I think part of my problem, part of the reason why I started Disruptors Network originally, and part of what we try to highlight is people who are authentically doing the work, right? Like I think social media tricks us into saying, well, this guy, look at this guy. He's verified. He's got all these followers. He's doing all these great things. All these famous people. They don't see the work you put in to get here. So what was the work like over the last few years to get to this point? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't, brother. And let me just clarify. It hasn't been 2 years. It's only been about a year and a couple months. So I've been going, when I say 100 miles an hour, that's probably the biggest understatement. I put together a very strategic process and strategy with this whole CLS thing. Like I said earlier in the conversation, and I was driven by my fear of going back to what I was doing. But more importantly, and on a deeper level, I was driven by death. And let me explain. I didn't want to not leave a legacy on this world. I don't want to not put a dent in the universe. And when I had that moment during the beginning of the pandemic, I got deep. I was like, what if it was my funeral in a couple of weeks? Like, what would people say? Like, yeah, I made people feel good. I had some success, but did I really leave a mark on this world? And it just got me so fired up. And I figured out the CLS thing. I put myself in their frequency and I went 100 miles an hour, like legitimately 19 to 20 hour days for the last year straight. But you know what? The results are there, brother. And it's funny. Like, if I had $1 billion in the bank right now, which I don't yet, I would still be doing exactly what I'm doing, specifically talking to you here today, because I love this stuff. I live and breathe it. It's the reason why it's taken off. And it's the reason why it's going to be the biggest thing the world's ever seen, because I'm so passionate about it. And I literally just want to help everybody. So to answer your question, I'm working my ass off.
But it's awesome about that, because I have this conversation with people all the time, this specific conversation. They said, you see where I'm at right now, right? You could be past me in 6 months if you just dedicate yourself to it and went through it. But like, you're proof in the pudding in that, because you're somebody who was doing something completely different, wasn't this guy who was out front, and you just dedicated yourself over the last year, and now you've become the person you were meant to be. But it's only because you put the work in.
100%, brother. 100% is, look, and a lot of people want to talk about like law of attraction, right? Like do less and more comes in. Maybe once you get to a certain point, right? Like Chanel, they don't have to do discounts because everyone knows who Chanel is. But in the beginning, anybody, Steve Jobs, Walt Disney, anybody that want to create something magical, you got to put in the work. You have to ask yourself, are you interested or are you committed? And if you're committed, then you have to get crazy and you have to put your head down and you got to put in the work. And then the results will definitely come.
That's awesome, dude. And listen, I love your energy. Just even on your lives, bro. I watched a bunch of your videos yesterday. You come on and like people come on and you're like, yeah, look who's like. I love you. I think it's great. Like because I went through a lot of your stuff over the last couple of days, and this morning I woke up thinking about it. I was like, listen, you can see people you watch, and some of the stuff you don't connect with. I connected with your stuff because your energy seems genuine, and that's the best thing I can say about you. And now meeting you. Your energy is very, very genuine. And I think that's fucking awesome. And I hope you I hope you never change. You know what I mean? I love it.
It's the greatest compliment I could receive. Thank you. I receive all of that. I appreciate it, brother. And I feel a connection here today. And to be honest, you remind me a little bit of myself. About a year ago when I was starting this stuff out, I could see you're very ambitious. You're asking all the right questions. You're reaching out to people, no ego and so forth. So the future is really bright for you. And I'm here to support in any way I can.
Thank you. And can you tell everybody, I know your Instagram is awesome, but what's the best place for people to connect with you and find more about CLS and everything else?
I would say Instagram, again, at Craig Siegel _CLS. Same thing I am on Twitter. On Facebook, it's Craig Siegel. The YouTube channel, which is a gem, is Craig Siegel. And anywhere you listen to podcasts, one of the top podcasts on the planet right now, the CLS Experience, and all about the programs, you can go to cultivatelastingsymphony.com.
Dude, you're awesome. I really, really appreciate you coming on and spending time with me today. I appreciate your time. I'm looking out for everything, and I'd love to connect more in the future.
Let's do it, brother.
All right. Thank you, dude.
You're welcome. Thank you, buddy.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Craig Siegel and learning more about his CLS experience, where he motivates entrepreneurs every single day. So make sure you go and you check that out. But make sure you come in and tune in next week, because we have one of our favorite disruptors, because she's an original disruptor. Her name is Jen Morilla. Not only because she's an expert in helping businesses grow their online presence and helping them with their marketing, but because she walked across the span, the same hike that I did, giving her an infinite amount of wisdom that she goes and teaches us on that podcast. So make sure that you tune in next week, because I swear to you, it's going to be a really good one. See you guys there.